Hello and welcome to Chiswick Book Festival. I'm here with Zoe Antoniades and we're here to talk about her new book coming out called Callie and Jimmy, Twins in Trouble. So Zoe, I'm going to start off and ask you, so give us an introduction about yourself and how you got into writing and your background.
So I was born and brought up in West London from second generation Greek Cypriot parents, and I've lived around Twickenham, Chiswick, and now currently living in Isleworth. English has always been my passion. It was the thing I was good at school, the thing I could do. And I firstly just loved reading, and my love of reading then made me want to be a writer. So I was always writing from like the age of 5, making up books, sellotaping them together, and it's usually about my brother and sister often. And how annoying they were, so it's somehow come full circle many years later. And getting into the industry itself, I did a degree in English and drama, and I've taught English and creative writing to primary school age children. I work with teenagers as well now. And through that, I self-published. I started self-publishing short stories that I'd written collaboratively with children. So we got together and made stories up, and then I found through the Winchester Writers Festival, that was a good platform for me. Taught me a lot of, gave me a lot of advice about ways in, met agents, people from the industry through that.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, you say you've worked with children a lot, and you are still working with children and teenagers. So would you say that they're your inspiration to kind of make up these stories, as well as obviously speaking about your brother and sister?
Yeah, I do. They often help me with ideas or contribute, especially the self-published books, which are called Invincible Voices. It was all about finding your writing voice through shared writing. Those stories came completely collaboratively from the children. I'd ask them what they wanted to write about. Then I'd help them channel and structure their ideas. And that's what brought me to the Chiswick Book Festival. Waterstones really kindly in 2017 launched the Invincible Voices books for me, and the manager of the bookshop at the time introduced me to this festival. She said, "Oh, you must be part of this." And so since this is my 4th time at the book festival. So
what book number is this?
This is book 1. So this is my first proper posh publishing
because previously
company.
You've collaborated with children.
So this is me. Well, I would say all by myself, but it is a fantastic team effort. So I've worked with Andersen Press, the publishing house, and there is a little story behind that actually. 2 years ago, they would have like a big name, and the big name in children's writing who was here was Julian Clary with his series of The Bolds. So I was really excited to meet Julian Clary. He was in the big hall, and I was across the road running a workshop at the Tabard, because the Chiswick Book Festival does workshops too. So I married up my books with actual writing workshops for the children. So both Julian and Clary and I were backstage having our coffee before going on. And so I was very excited to meet him, but little did I know, actually the editor who came with him, his editor, was even more exciting to meet, because it turned out we'd been at school together.
Wow, in Chiswick? Or?
Actually in Twickenham.
Oh, amazing.
And I was chatting politely to Julian Clary, and his editor was sat next to him, and she was just on her phone quietly, kind of listening in maybe. And then and he said, and I said to Julian Clary, "Oh, I'm Zoe." And she looked up and she said, "Are you Zoe Antoniades?" I said, that name carries, doesn't it? And she said, I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I was at school with you."
Wow.
And I was like, "Really?" Because last time I saw her, I was 10. So we didn't really recognise each other from, although you would know now, but when I wouldn't have known her otherwise. So she's Charlie Shepherd, fantastic editor at Andersen Press. And she said, "Let me look at some of your work. Who you're writing now, are you?" And it was her idea. She's been wanting someone to write about twins for a while. She'd been asking different authors, "Could you have a go at writing about twins?" I think because of IVF as well, there are lots of twins around. When I visited schools and talked to classes about my writing, and I'm telling them, oh, I've got a book about twins coming up, the teachers are always saying, stand up. There's always like 2 sets of twins in each class.
That's
often.
amazing. Yeah.
So,
wow.
It would definitely appeal.
Yeah, it definitely is. So tell us, give us 3 words you would describe Callie, and do the same for Jimmy as well, as twins. Obviously, they are twins. So how would you describe them in 3 words?
Callie, smart.
Okay.
A bit goody two-shoes.
Goody two-shoes, okay.
Twinkle in her eye.
Amazing. And her brother, her twin brother.
Big twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
Cheeky.
Yeah.
Lively.
Yeah.
And lovable.
Yeah, it's interesting because you do find that with twins is that they're not actually they're not exactly the same. They have that difference within them.
And I had a brother who was only 11 months younger than me, so weren't quite twins, but always being compared.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
just because you're from the same parents, you are so different. I'm different to my big sister as well. So I thought, how can we make them different? So Jimmy has some special needs. He's got ADHD, so we kind of address his hyperness, as Callie calls it. But although she calls him her most annoying brother in the world, she actually really loves him, and he loves her too. And I tried to pick up on that closeness,
the
that
genuine of it.
siblings anyway have.
Exactly.
But imagine if it's your twin.
Yeah.
And you've done everything
Yeah.
together.
So do you have brothers and sisters yourself?
I got older sister, and then I had a brother who was just 11 months younger than me, so quite close together.
And would you say any of them relate to Callie or Jimmy?
I think you do always draw from your own life experiences. Callie is a bit of me, a bit of my sister, a bit of some children I've taught, because you say, well, do you get inspiration from your kids?
Yeah, of course.
Jimmy has got quite a lot of my nephew about him. He's got the warmth of my brother, but my brother was a lot calmer and cooler than Jimmy. Jimmy's not cool. He's always bumping into things and falling over, and but he's very likeable. In fact, he's kind of the favourite.
Oh,
and
really?
Callie doesn't like that, because another very central character is the granny.
Yes.
Who they call Yaya, because she's Greek. Yes. And she loves them both equally, but Callie really thinks she favours Jimmy. I mean, he is the boy, and he needs more attention. She's not based on my granny. She's sort of an amalgamation of all Greek grandmothers. And she's very funny, and I tried hard not to make her like, so often in books the granny's often evil and grumpy and mean, but actually grannies are really warm. And my nephews and niece love my mum. They love their yaya, and most yayas I know, they're quite judgmental about things.
Yeah, they say, yeah.
But they're so warm to their grandchildren.
That's so good. It's good that you've tapped into that in something, because I feel like that's what was necessary.
They love their yaya, and she loves them, and she always sort of gets in the mix with them quite a lot, because she does a lot of the caring for the children.
So Zoe, just tell me a little bit about the relationship that Callie and Jimmy have, although they're twins. Could you give me a brief explanation of what they are?
So they live in West London with their mum and their yaya. Dad's still around, but he lives in another part of town. They have a good relationship with their dad too. They get on well, but they argue a lot. It's just typical sibling relationship. Callie's a little bit jealous of Jimmy, because although she's smarter, does better at school, if you like, academically, so the things that sometimes you're told are the things to be good at, so she's on the top table at school. At the same time, Jimmy is smart, he's very creative, he's great at sport. And he's quite popular, even though he's a bit annoying. So she's slightly jealous of him. He gets the attention more at home because he's a little bit more needy as well, and she's a bit jealous and feels a bit put out by that. So she always describes him as the most annoying brother in the whole wide world. But if he's in trouble, she'd be the first one to stick up for him or get him out of it or get sucked into the trouble with him, and always slightly instigate it too.
Always by his side.
Yeah, they are very much connected. I think they'd be lost without each other.
Wow, that's beautiful. Could we potentially hear an extract from the book?
I'd love to read to you from the second story. There are 4 stories in the book, 4 long short stories. This was called Double Dare.
Oh.
Whenever it's home time, we all run out into the playground to find our mums or dads or whoever it is that's collecting us. For me and Jimmy, it's always Yaya, because Mum works full time and Dad lives too far away now. Jimmy usually comes bolting out with his hands in the air yelling, "Freedom!" Then he does a celebratory lap around the AstroTurf or something. But the other day, he came out all hot and upset. There were streaks running through the smudges on his cheeks from where he'd been crying too. Yaya held her arms open and he buried his head in her black knitted shawl. "Manamu Jimmy, what happened?" said Yaya, stroking his scruffy hair. "I hate Mrs. Gutteridge." To be fair to Jimmy, no one likes Mrs. Gutteridge very much. Yaya unburied my brother, put her hands on his shoulders and looked him in the eye. "Hate is a very strong word, Jimmy Moo. You must not talk about the teachers like that. She's not even a teacher. She's a dinner lady. And she made me sit on the bench and miss most of playtime for nothing. And it was our class's turn on the football pitch." "Maybe she think you do something, Jimmy," said Yaya, rummaging around in her pocket and pulling out a fluffy tissue. "But I didn't. She's the rubbishest dinner lady ever." Jimmy clenched his fist and kicked the ground. Yaya looked to me for an explanation. This is one of the downsides of being a twin. Always being together. You end up having to live through all the chaos your hyper brother makes. Except I'm not meant to call him hyper. It's ADHD he's got. Sometimes I think that's his excuse for being annoying. Anyway, that's why he gets all the attention, all the time. And that's why he gets let off for things that the rest of us totally would get told off for. Except this time, Mrs. Gutteridge did tell him off, and that's why Jimmy was in such a rage. And there was Yaya still looking at me for answers. "Well, the thing is, Yaya, when Mrs. Gutteridge rang the bell for the kids having packed lunches to line up, Jimmy ran over really fast and ended up crashing into everyone. How do you know? You weren't even there. You were inside doing posters for the bake sales like the teacher's pet that you are," snapped Jimmy. I knew he was just jealous because he never gets chosen to do stuff like that. Special opportunities like lunchtime passes and monitor duties don't come Jimmy's way very often. The bake sale was the next day, and I'd had a great time helping with the posters for it, only to come back at the end of lunchtime to have it all ruined by everyone saying, "Did you hear what your brother's done?" And "Jimmy's in big trouble," and "Jimmy's had one of his epic rages again." "Just because I wasn't there doesn't mean I don't still know what you did," I told him. "It's not like half the entire school wasn't talking about it, always showing me up. Why'd you have to keep pushing into everyone anyway?" "It wasn't everyone," yelled Jimmy. "It was only Nina who fell down, and it was an accident." "Yeah, right. Only an accident for the 5th time this week," I reminded him. "You know you can't ever line up properly. That's why we have a lining up order. And you're meant to be at the front." Jimmy's face was like thunder, so I didn't go on to tell Yaya that it was interesting how he only ever seemed to accidentally barge into the nice little kids like Nina Wilinska and never the big kids like Mitch Moran. Yaya made the sign of the cross, a sort of prayer thing old lady Greek people do all the time, looked to the heavens and gave up. She hooked her arm into Jimmy's and led us home. When we got back to the house, Jimmy stormed up to his room and slammed the door. I know that often brothers or sisters like it when the other one's in trouble and not them, but this time I was actually a bit on Jimmy's side, and I felt bad for snaking him out to Yaya. Anyway, I gave Jimmy a bit of time to cool off and then went upstairs and knocked gently on his door. Go away! Still in a grump then. I tried again. It's only me, Jimmy. Let me in, come on. You were a bit annoying, but you didn't deserve to miss football. I could hear him shuffling about, and soon after the door opened and he was standing in front of me with his snotty face. Don't cry anymore, Jimmy. Let's do something to cheer you up. I know. Let's ask Yaya if we can make some cakes for the bake sale tomorrow. Jimmy wiped his nose on his sleeve and smiled. And before I knew it, he was tearing down the stairs calling, Yaya! I followed him into the sitting room to find him pulling Yaya up from her armchair and startling her out of her snooze. Gently, Jimmy, more gently, please. My poor granny always has to put up with so much when it comes to Jimmy. We need to make some cakes, Yaya, for the bake sale. It's tomorrow, insisted Jimmy, hopping about like a ballistic bunny. It's tomorrow? Why you not say before? Said Yaya, rubbing her forehead. Jimmy did this puppy-eyed thing that always works with Yaya, and she caved in immediately. All right. So what we do? We make Greek cake, yes? Paglava or bureki? It's all right, Yaya, I said. I know how to make brownies all by myself. Mum lets me now. You just need to help us with the oven part. I'll make the cakes with Jimmy. You have your sleep. I know sleeping. I just rest my eyes, said Yaya. She always says that. She knows we think it's funny. So she winked at us, pulled her favourite homemade blanket over her knees and settled herself back down. Jimmy raced into the kitchen and opened up all the cupboards looking for ingredients and equipment. He'd have emptied the whole lot out everywhere if it wasn't for me. Slow down, Jimmy, I said. We only need one bowl. And put those raisins back. And all that other stuff. We're only making brownies, not half a bakery shop. You never let me do anything, Miss Bossy Pants, huffed Jimmy. Anyway, I thought you were supposed to be cheering me up. Look, I'll let you do all the weighing and the stirring and stuff. You just have to let me be in charge, because I am the one who actually knows how to do these things properly. Right, now then, we need 225 grams of plain flour. Sticking his tongue out the side of his mouth, he does that when he's in deep concentration, which isn't that often with Jimmy. He ever so carefully measured the ingredients one by one. We were doing Dad's foolproof recipe, which means you can pretty much chuck everything together and mix it all up in one go. And so even Jimmy was able to manage that without too much of a disaster. Except they put a secret ingredient in and it all gets a lot more out of hand. So I might read the rest to you another time.
And with the illustrations, because I think the book is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, great choice of colours. Katie Keir was your illustrator. How was it working with her?
Oh, it was excellent. I mean, it's a massive team effort because it wasn't myself who sourced Katie Keir. Andersen Press, who published the book, work with an agency called the Bright Agency, and they use lots of illustrators via this agency. And Katie Keir seems to be this rising star coming through. She's graduated from, I think, Gloucester University with a first-class degree. So they'd already sort of seen some samples of her work and thought, when the right book comes along, we'd like to introduce Katie Keir. So they did give me a little bit of a say. They emailed me some of Katie's illustrations, not of Callie and Jimmy, just generally. Said, this is the illustrator we'd like to work with. What do you think? And as, you know, I'm quite new into the industry and new to the team, I kind of trusted the team. I didn't want to start being prima donna-ish and saying, no, I have this illustrator instead. But anyway, she was brilliant. She just stood out. So after that, what she did was an art director would work with the illustrator in the same way as the editor works with me on the text. And I think she must have just really read the text so carefully, because the attention to detail and the life in the illustrations just reflected what was in my head anyway. And if not, it was always better. So I was quite comfortable with it. I rarely sent things back to the drawing board, if you like. I always have to say, they will always send me they'll send me roughs first, rather than have Katie do the whole thing. And then I suddenly say, no, that character looks nothing like Yaya should look like. So they send you roughs without the shading and all. Callie and Jimmy, I was just happy with amazingly straight away. I'd sent them some photos of me, my brother and sister when we were little. Yeah. And the girl is kind of a mixture of me and my sister. She's got my sister's big hair. So she just took that on herself. The Yaya was a bit wrong at first. She didn't really look Greek enough. So I sent a few photos of different old aunties. So a couple of photos were sent to give a bit of influence, but otherwise she just worked really well from the text, from reading really thoughtfully and imagining. And yeah, a couple of things I've asked to change, but not very many.
Yeah, so like you say, it's a collaborative process. Is that all the way through, or is it just after you finish the edit and then she reads the text?
Yeah, with the edit, that's massive collaborative process with my editor, but it's all about the text and the stories. Once the final draft is done, before the copy edit stage, so once all the ideas are done, copy edit's more about making sure it fits on the page well and there are no typos, if you like. But at that stage, you're not really changing the story or the narrative in any way. So after the final sort of draft, it gets sent to the illustrator, and I think the art director says we want this many pictures and we want them in this part of the story. And then Katie gets drawing and I get to see them along the way, so from roughs to next stage. Then they show me how they fit into the pages, and I'll just make sure there's no details missed. So in book 2, Jimmy wears a Halloween costume and he's a werewolf, and he needs furry gloves and furry feet because it gets rainy and they get soggy, so that's important to the story. But in the original roughs, he didn't have furry hands and feet. So I sort of circled the picture and then sent it back with a note and said, add some furry feet. Or the old lady is meant to have long wispy hair, but she had her hair in a bun.
Oh, I see.
And it was important to the story.
Of course, yeah.
So I asked them to just change. So I can ask to change sort of details like that. I'm asked all the way along. But I hadn't ever met her for a while, and because she lives in Gloucestershire and I'm in West London, and she's busy. So I found her on Twitter and Instagram, and we kind of made friends that way.
Virtually.
I said thank you, and it worked. I mean, we're doing everything virtually now, aren't we? But then I was really lucky to meet her last week. She came down, and a few local bookshops are supporting the book, and she painted some of the windows, and we put some Callie and Jimmy cardboard cutouts in the windows, and so I got to meet her at last. Yes. So she's great. She's so talented.
They're really beautifully drawn. Yes. Detail is everything.
This book wouldn't be this book without the illustrations. It's a real, definitely a team thing, and I feel so lucky and glad.
Yeah, honestly.
Because when an illustrator sent your way, you think, are they going to do what's in my head?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's not exactly what you imagine. Yeah. I mean, at first, before I saw any of her work, in my head I had that kind of Horrid Henry, Tony Ross type of drawing, just because that's what you see a lot of on children's books. Exactly. So I'd imagine line drawings, and then I got these back really solid and blocky, but the life in the pictures, the movement, the action.
Just even that front cover itself is beautiful. It just says everything about the twins. You know they're twins.
She can do something just with an eyebrow, you know, and put so much character in. I think that's what she adds to the book, because she doesn't inform the narrative of the story, because that's all done before she gets hold of the job of illustrating. But what she does do is she brings out the humour, the comedy, and the life in the characters.
Yeah, definitely brings it to life. It's beautiful.
My editor read it to her son.
Yeah.
And he was loving it and laughing away, and then they finished it really quickly, and he said, I want to read the next one, because it's hopefully part of a bigger series.
Yes.
And she said, well, the next one is, it's in its draft stage. I could read you the draft when it comes through. And he said, no, I want it with the pictures.
It makes a difference, it does. Yeah, so beautiful. Last question. What would you tell your younger self? So the kids that you teach, the younger kids, what would you tell them if they wanted to get into like writing or any type of narrating or anything to do with, creating?
Keep going. Actually, I'll tell them what my uncle once told me. He just said, and it wasn't just about writing, it was anything, because we all get those times where you feel a bit, it's not quite working out for me, or I'm not quite on the right path, I might need to change my track a little bit. And he just said to me, just take your opportunities.
I like
take
that.
your opportunities when
I
they
really
come.
like that.
But he said, make sure you're in the way of the opportunities. Like you can't, your opportunities aren't going to come your way just sitting at home doing nothing. You've got to go out and make some opportunity. So be a little bit entrepreneurial. Find out about things, keep trying, don't worry about failing. In fact, there is no such thing as failure. The failure just leads to learning how to do something better or in a different way. So, find the opportunities, work towards the opportunities, and then take them when they come your way. Do what you can with them.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Zoe. Thank you so much. So the book is out the 3rd of September. Make sure you go to Waterstones Chiswick to grab your copy. Thank you.